In Chapter 2, we'll talk about the contribution of theory to program planning, why the use of theory is important in understanding social problems, why and how theory is used in program planning, how to differentiate between theory of practice and theory in practice, how to differentiate between theory of program planning and theory in program planning, the differences between strategic management and program planning, and again, we'll talk specifically about theory and practice and how this relates to programs themselves. Programs are defined as sets of activities designed to produce desired outcomes. Program planners want to know why specified activities in specified amounts and specified orders produce desired results. So again, specifically related and tied to those program goals, program outcomes, and outputs. The use of theory in program planning, there are actually two types of theories that guide the problem-solving process. Process itself, it means to introduce and implement steps to address problems or select a model that will guide intervention. And then when we look at etiology, we're talking about the cause. And so a lot of times when we're trying to understand the problem, we're looking at cause and effect. What are some of the catalysts that have been instrumental in creating the problem or maintaining or sustaining the problem? What are some of the effects of that? And again, that allows us to see what are some of the solutions and how can we begin to change those attitudes and change those things that are beginnings or causes of some of these social justice issues and social problems. Program planning is theory-driven and based on hypotheses that can be tested. Hypotheses are sets of statements about the relationships between specified variables. Hypotheses are based on relevant literature and existing theories. Programs are defined as sets of activities designed to produce desired outcomes and are basically hypotheses. Part of the assessment process that attempts to identify the etiology, or again, the causes or beginnings of the problem, the factors associated with the problem, and the data that needs to be collected. And so again, just remember, even from Chapter 1, we're talking about evidence-based practices, evidence-based interventions, things that we've seen. We can run programs where we are, kind of testing a new intervention, but again, it's steeped in literature, it's steeped in the empirical evidence that we already have that's pre-existing. There are three different approaches when we talk about planning theory: comprehensive or optimizing, and this is identifying the etiology or kind of beginning or causes of the problem, identifying all possible means to solving the problem, evaluating each alternative in terms of its efficiency and effectiveness, selecting the best alternative, and developing program goals and objectives. We can also talk about a sub-optimizing approach, and here it's a selection of an alternative that achieves some of the desired goals without evaluating every alternative. So this is often good enough to meet a minimal set of requirements. And we could also talk about incrementalism, and this is when we're improving shortcomings of an existing system or an existing program. Different types of planning. There are three major types of planning that we often use in human services: strategic planning, management planning, and program planning. All of these, or each of these three, uses a rational approach to problem solving. There's a clear relationship between ends and means and goals in the intervention strategies. And again, it's efficient. We're looking for efficiency. You'll see that coming up quite a bit in this course. So oftentimes we're looking at a long-range view, not always, but the process here is when we're deciding on the future of an organization, setting goals and objectives, identifying resources, and identifying policies needed to govern the acquisition and disposition of resources. And so again, we're thinking of what are all of the outcomes, what are all of the outputs that we see, what does that look like long-term. Okay, and so again, as we're going through this view and thinking about this overall big picture that we're looking at with our program and the stages of planning, this will produce a vision statement, a mission statement, a statement of strategic direction, strategic analysis, and strategic goals. So again, when we say strategic, remember, we're looking at how do these things all line up together? How does each part of the process connect? How do the hypotheses that we have connect with our potential benefits in the community or to the targeted population? Management planning. This is the process by which managers assure that resources are used efficiently and effectively to accomplish goals identified in the strategic plan. Focuses on the entire organization, and managers can expand, modify, or terminate programs as needed. Program planning focuses on the development of a discrete set of activities that target one aspect of the overall mission of the organization. And so as we've talked about identifying problems and looking at causes and some of the etiology of these problems, but some common themes that we see with problem solving, the concepts of efficiency and effectiveness. And I said, we'll discuss this quite a bit throughout the semester through this session, but rational approaches, we're really looking to find solutions and strategies. As we said before, we really want these to be efficient. They cost the least and serve the most. We also want them to be effective and make sure that they are successful in the services that they provide. It's an iterative process that recognizes earlier approaches may need to be modified. So again, it's very dynamic. This may be constantly changing. And that's the part of the evaluation piece, is that we can tweak things as we see what's working and what's not, and what's really meeting these needs and not, and what is most efficient and effective. An alternate approach to problem solving is called asset planning or asset mapping. And so this is a more strengths-based perspective, identifying problems and community strengths useful in community development and community building. This promotes community involvement and ownership in the strategy the process produces. And these can be very effective approaches. Problem-solving processes and methodology, a focus on clients here, especially when we're thinking of planning theory and applying that to macro practice. So again, collecting data and information, assessing the problem based on the data that's been collected, developing a treatment plan, implementing the plan, monitoring that process, and as we said earlier, evaluating that process. And again, that's to ensure that we're being effective. Looking at program planning approach, problem analysis and needs assessment, and that can lead to the hypothesis that you have, establishing goals and objectives based on the hypothesis, designing programs or interventions, developing data collection systems for program elements, and developing a monitoring and evaluation plan. So you'll hear the word, again, evaluation quite a bit as we seek to provide the most successful, effective strategies here. So looking here at clinical application versus program planning application. So again, with the clinical application, you see a collection of data and information, assessment of the problem based on data collected, development of a treatment plan, implementation of the plan, monitoring of progress, and then evaluation of results. So that's more that clinical piece. As we look more kind of that macro administrative program planning application, you see problem analysis and needs assessment comes first, then establishing the goals and objectives, then designing the programs, developing a data collection system, and developing a monitoring and evaluation plan. So again, you see how all of these steps in the process are linked to one another. So again, it's just important to recognize that theory is essential in program planning. The theory of planning is a series of activities that begin with problem analysis and end with a strategy for program evaluation, and theory in planning is the identification of causal and other factors related to the problem that provide the basis for intervention. And so again, this chapter provided a brief overview. There's additional information in the text, and this also ties to beginning to understand how we'll plan our programs as part of the assignments in this course. Thanks so much.